to me, I just think when you're so, everything is about this decision at one to get him playing well, it would almost be too tempting for me.
And before we get to any quarterback talk, I know you also do the Chargers in preseason, correct? You're on the broadcast for the Chargers preseason.
Yeah, for the whole year. For the whole year. I do the radio for the whole year.
So you tell us what we're getting. I think we all know what we're getting, but you would know better than us all of the details. What are we getting in Keenan Allen?
Well, he's a third down machine. So he's still, I haven't seen any drop off. I've called every Charger game for the last 6 years, and I haven't seen any drop off in terms of his quickness. He's incredibly smart. So, the Chargers have had smart quarterbacks there. Rivers is really bright. Herbert's really bright. And you just have a trust there that he's going to see the right things, do the right things, be where he needs to be. He's not going to be super, super explosive. His 100-yard games, which there'll be a bunch of them, are going to come via, 10 catches, 8 catches. He's not going to have those 3-4 catch games for 100-plus yards. That's not the style he is. But, man, as you guys know, man, for a young quarterback walking in and knowing I've got baked-in layups, this guy's going to give you baked-in layups. Just let him run option routes on on third down. You can live with that.
That's where I was going with it, Daniel. I know he's going to be 32 at some point during the season. My hope is that they're going to find a way to sign him to an extension that helps them with the number of his salary this year, but also ensures that he'll be here at least a couple of years. The value for him in this team is immeasurable when it comes to helping along a good rookie quarterback. Is it not?
Yeah, I think his experience with Justin, and Herbert had one of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen. And he was a big part of that. So having a guy like that to just be dependable and reliable and just having faith in him, I think it's huge. Look, I'm not alone. Everybody's saying the same things. I love what Poles has done in terms of laying the foundation here, for Caleb to walk right into this thing and have a chance to have some success, take some pressure off of him. The fascinating thing for me is going to be what do they do at 9? Do you trade back? Do you take an edge rusher? To me, I just think when you're so, everything is about this decision at one to get him playing well, it would almost be too tempting for me to say, screw it. If one of those top 3 receivers is there, I'm going to take him and just throw him into this talented mix and really, just set Caleb up for a really, really smooth entry point into the NFL.
Daniel Jeremiah is on the CarX Tire and Auto Hotlines from the NFL Network. They'll be all over the NFL draft. We were with Olin Kreutz last night, Tommy and I, and he feels that if there is a really, really good offensive lineman sitting there at 9, he said, I would take the offensive lineman. Then you have bookend tackles if Joe Alt is there or Fashanu, and you have him with Darnell Wright. Now you've got big-time play up front. Do you see a scenario where they would do that, and would anybody be available at 9?
Yeah, I think there's going to be one there. I have no problems with that if they wanted to go on along the offensive line. If you talk about Fashanu there at Penn State, I'm a huge fan of Fuaga out there at Oregon State, who's played right tackle. So you could plug him in. You'd have 2 physical guys, him and Darnell Wright. I think you could flip them however you wanted to flip them. But yeah, without question, when they pick at 9, there will be a offensive tackle there with Pro Bowl ability. These quarterbacks, especially when we get the 4th one that's going to go, which I think is going to happen. I talk to teams all the time that are picking, late teens, early 20s who are just like, dude, can we get 5 or 6 of these quarterbacks to go? Please, just let them all go. It's going to push all these players down. But the Bears are going to have an elite pass rusher there, maybe their pick of pass rushers, potentially. They're going to have a very talented offensive tackle there. And they're, potentially, I think there's a chance one of those top 3 wideouts is there. They're going to be in a good spot.
Daniel, how active do you think the trade machine will be leading up to this draft, or when the draft does begin, as people try to climb up in round 1 to maybe draft one of these quarterbacks, whether it's Penix or it's Bo Nix or it's J.J. McCarthy?
Yeah, I think that there's going to be action for the 4th one, whoever that is. I think, I kind of assume that's going to be J.J. McCarthy. That's the feedback I've gotten and talking to teams around the league that he'd be that guy. So I think that's going to, elicit a move up the board. And then after that, maybe it's a small one if there is one. I mean, if you're the the Raiders, you're sitting tucked in right behind a team in Denver inside your own division that could be a quarterback team. So if somehow McCarthy was still there, or if somehow you fell in love with either Penix or Nix, why would you take the chance that he could go one pick in front of you when you could just leapfrog that team in your division to get your guy? So right. I don't think you'd see a big move up the board, but I think a small move like that wouldn't shock me.
In your latest mock, you do have the Bears taking Odunze at 9. And I think the last time we talked to you, I think you let us know that you thought the difference between he and Marvin Harrison wasn't very big. Like, do you still feel like Odunze is every bit as good as the other guys in this draft at that position?
I have him as my second guy, so I have a big grade on him. He's my third overall player in the draft. Marvin's number 2, but I have him ahead of Neighbors. It's a flavor thing with him and Neighbors. Totally different styles. Neighbors is crazy explosive and dynamic and gives you the run after catch stuff, whereas Odunze is a little more polished. He's bigger catch radius, more physical. So that's kind of a flavor thing. Marvin, to me, is still he's still the number 1 guy. I went back and, for fun over the last 2 or 3 days, I went back and watched all of Caleb Williams' stuff from 22, and I went back and I watched all of Marvin Harrison's stuff from 22. Those are my number 1 and number 2 players in the draft, obviously at them as the top players of their position. But I went with the theory of you've been married for a while, but you kind of want to rekindle those old feelings, so you go back to when you had your first date. So that's what I did. I went back and watched that 22 tape, and I came out of it, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's why I fell in love with these 2 guys, and that's where I am now.
That's where you have to go to actually watch him play quicker, right, Caleb Williams? Like, there are a lot of people out there, Daniel, that are saying, well, he plays too much hero ball. The ball doesn't come out quick enough. I felt, and I'm not the expert that you are on Caleb Williams, I felt like he tried to do too much in 2023. But if you go back to 2022 when the group around him was better, you'll see him play on time, and you'll see him do all of the traditionally good quarterback things that you're expecting.
That's what I came away with. I was actually talking to Orlovsky about it, and I said, hey, you ought to go back and even if you just go back and pull up all of his explosive plays, there's a decent number of them from 22 that come from within the structure. Now, even some of those, he's got some run-throughs, but you'll see him sidestep, climb, and deliver the ball accurately. This will sum up where we are with people having these strong opinions on him. Like Caleb has somehow just become this very polarizing player. I posted a clip from the 2022 Utah game. I posted 2 throws from the regular season game at Utah. And one's a dig that it was like 3rd and 15. He just rips it, right? First down. The other one, he escapes a run through. He gets outside. He has the awareness to not get past the line of scrimmage, and he lofts the ball up in the air beautifully for a completion. So I post these 2 plays. I get back the reaction, yeah, and who won those games? Get out of here, blah, blah, blah. Just killing me, right? So I went back and I said, so here we are. He threw for 381 yards and 5 touchdowns. He ran 8 times for 57 yards and lost 43-42. And I'm like, what are we doing? Yeah. What is happening right now?
Welcome to our life.
Yeah, welcome to Chicago. It's crazy.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, and by the way, if that happens, he wins. He has an undefeated season. During the regular season, and they're like, yeah, and they lost to Utah again. I know he only threw for 363 yards and 3 touchdowns in the rematch, so he really sucked in that one.
Yeah,
exactly. In terms of Justin, put a bow on it for us. If he was in this draft, knowing what you know of Justin, where does he go? Does he go in the first round?
Yeah, because people are always going to gamble on talent, and the tools. The things that would get you and have me, to be honest with you, excited about a guy like Drake May, size, the physicality, the arm strength, the athleticism, the toughness. Like, he shares a lot of those things, with Justin. So Justin has those tools, which if he was coming into the process and we hadn't seen him for 3 years on an NFL field, you would say, I want to take a gamble on that. You always – there's all these nuggets and notes floating around about the failure of these quarterbacks over the last few years, and it has not been a high hit rate, right? But you're always going to chase greatness. My whole thing is like if you just want to play it safe, and then you go, okay, well, best place scenario, best case scenario, I'm going to want to replace this guy within 3 or 4 years and want to find somebody who's better. And then you're in other words, like, find somebody who has that ceiling. You got to take your shot. You got to take your swing. You got to be aggressive and hope like heck that you hit on one of these guys. And if you do, you're set for a decade plus. And if you don't, you know what? You get right back on the horse and you go try and find another one.
Daniel, what do you make of the ultimate trade of Justin to the Pittsburgh Steelers? The time it took, the compensation they got in return, and just how it all went down. How surprised were you? And how do you kind of describe the entire experience?
Well, it was interesting. I haven't heard anybody kind of compare it, but you guys, as we talked about, I'm a baseball fan, and some of these things can kind of be timing. Like, there's a reason. You think Blake Snell went into the free agency thinking he was going to get a 2-year contract, that there wasn't going to be more? Well, what happened is all the chairs filled up. Yeah. And so once the chairs filled up, your value goes down. So, I think if they would have made that trade at the beginning of the process, they would have got a little bit more than this. But I also think there's somewhat, the ghost of Sam Darnold, where, and I'm guilty of this, of using that as maybe that's a roadmap for what the compensation could look like, which was a 2, a 4, and a 6. But they immediately had to pick up the 5th-year option. That did not work out for Carolina. So they traded, 3 picks, ate the money, and then had to move on from the player. And I think that has, kind of been a little bit of a cautionary tale for these teams and saying this is a 1-year guy that we're going to bring in to be, really kind of insurance. Like, how much are we really going to pay for that? And that's kind of where you ended up getting what you got.
Hey, real quick, back to Justin. How do you think he'll fit in Pittsburgh? And obviously, Bears fans will be watching because it's a conditional 6th-round pick that becomes a 4th-round pick if, in fact, he plays 51% of the snaps. Do you think this is a good spot for him?
I think so. I don't know what other spots were out there for him. I think this was kind of it. So I think the way that he likes to play matches the Steelers. In terms of being able to run the ball, push the ball over the top, off the run game, let him run around, make some plays, the physicality, the toughness. I've talked to Bucky Brooks on our podcast and said, just going back to when I started with the Ravens in 2003 and kind of spending some time inside that division, the Steelers for the last however many years, when they're good, it's the same formula. They play great defense, they run the ball, and they've got a quarterback that can create a little magic, at the end of half, end of game scenarios. And that's kind of how Russell Wilson plays the game. And I think there's something to that. You're hoping that that's what Justin Fields is going to be.